Today on Real Estate Backstage, the Labor Department has released the inflation data for the month of October. There are conflicting reports over how average commission rates have been impacted by the new NAR rules that were recently implemented. NAR's executive committee votes on how to fund the settlement payments. And finally, we take a look at some of the biggest dangers and opportunities facing the real estate industry. Now, before we jump in, if you're watching this on YouTube or if you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, take a moment to subscribe to the show. That way you don't miss any future episodes. And if you want links to any of the articles that we're going to cover today, you can find the show notes at realestatebackstage.com/episode 5. Now, before we cover inflation, I want to circle back around real quick to last week's episode. That's when we talked about what a second Donald Trump administration was likely to mean for the housing market. This video got a lot of traction. Just within the first 48 hours of being published, we had 6 times as many views compared to any of the prior episodes we had published. So this topic is resonating with people. Consumers are curious. So as a real estate professional, you need to be making content about this. So here's my challenge to you. If you haven't already done so, go ahead and block off some time on your calendar. Make a video about how you think the election, how a second Trump administration is likely to impact your local real estate market. Feel free to go back to the show notes from last week, realestatebackstage.com/episode 4. You can find links to all those articles. You can use the same exact resources and topics that I talked about, make your own videos, publish it to your social media profile. I promise you're going to get some traction there. Now, the other thing you need to be doing is calling your database. I'm sure over the last several months, you've talked to a lot of people who said they were waiting until after the election. Well, guess what? The election's over. I hope you kept the receipts. It's time to call those people, have a conversation about real estate. Now, here's the interesting thing. Trump beat Harris by about 2 points in the popular vote, a little over 2%. But prior to the election, all of the polling was suggesting that Trump had a much bigger lead on the question of specifically who do you think is most capable of handling the economy. There's a poll by Gallup just before the election that showed Trump had a 9-point advantage over Kamala Harris on that question. Who is better equipped to handle the economy? So what that means is there are a lot of people out there who voted for Kamala Harris, but they're actually optimistic about what a Trump administration will mean for the economy specifically. They may have disagreed with Trump on a lot of other issues, but on the economy specifically, they're probably feeling pretty optimistic right now. So a lot of people are going to be getting back into the swing of things. They're going to bring their real estate search back to the front burner and reprioritize buying or selling. So you need to call your database. Follow up with your leads and see who is ready to have a conversation about real estate. All right, so with that, let's go ahead and jump into the conversation with inflation. According to the Wall Street Journal, quote, the Labor Department on Wednesday reported that consumer prices in October rose 2.6% from a year earlier. That marks a pickup from the previous month when the consumer price index was 2.4%. Core prices, which exclude food and energy items in an effort to better reflect inflation's underlying trend, were up 3.3%. Both results matched the expectations of economists polled by the Wall Street Journal. Investors had been preparing for an inflation reading higher than the consensus estimate, and they took Wednesday's report as good news. Traders upped their bets that Federal Reserve officials will cut rates by a quarter point at their next meeting in December rather than standing pat, unquote. And according to RIS Media, quote, the Federal Reserve's policy of higher interest rates has significantly reduced inflation, but one sector of the economy, shelter costs, continue to drive the consumer price index higher. On an unadjusted basis, shelter costs rose 4.9% year over year. According to Danielle Hale, chief economist at Realtor.com, that is higher than the pre-pandemic baseline that averaged 3.3%. In October, housing accounted for more than half of the CPI increase compared to September, rising 0.4% on a seasonally adjusted basis. The rise is in line with shelter cost numbers going back to April, unquote. So looking back at September 18th, when the Fed first started to loosen its monetary policy and take a less restrictive stance, the average rate for a 30-year fixed-rate mortgage at that time, according to Optimal Blue, was 6.031%. Now, as of the time of this recording on November 15th, rates have risen to 6.822%. That's an increase of 79 basis points over the same period of time that the Fed has brought their rate down by 75 basis points. So almost a 1.5 spread there between the downward movement in the federal funds rate and the upward movement of average rates for a 30-year fixed-rate mortgage. All right, shifting gears to a couple of recent reports about how the average commission rates for real estate agents have been impacted over the last couple months in the immediate aftermath of NAR implementing the practice changes as part of the settlement agreement. So first, we're going to look at a contract and commission study published by RIS Media on October 29th. According to the report, quote, after months of speculation and years of trepidation, RIS Media can say definitively that at least in the short term, the percentage of a home sale price that agents and brokers claim as their hard-earned compensation has shrunk. Although still very early in the post-settlement era, this news is certain to worry many, as pundits and commentators have long claimed that a significant blow to commissions could permanently alter the residential real estate industry as we know it, unquote. Before I go into the specifics of the report, I just want to give this disclaimer. The report does include actual average commission rates. I think it's important for me as a broker to provide some type of antitrust disclaimer here. I'm sure my attorney would appreciate that. My brokerage, Bluefield Realty Group, we did not participate in this study. RIS Media did survey real estate agents and brokers across the country, and they compiled the data to come up with average commission rates both before and after the new rules went into effect. We are looking at these numbers simply in an effort to identify trends, analyze what impact, if any, the new rules have had. This should in no way be construed as endorsing or recommending that you charge a specific commission rate. We are certainly not trying to conspire with anyone who may be paying attention to this podcast to recommend that you charge any particular rate, whatever company you might happen to be at. Commission rates are negotiable. They're not set by any realtor association or by any MLS. Okay, now that that's out of the way. So RIS Media surveyed approximately 1,300 real estate agents and brokers across the country, and they found that the total amount of seller-paid commission fell by 68 basis points, from 5.64% in the year leading up to the rule change down to 4.96% in the post-implementation period from August 17th through October 7th. That's the period of time during which they conducted the study. So seller-paid commission to listing agents fell by 31 basis points, while seller-paid commission to buyer's agents fell by 37 basis points. Looking at a regional breakdown of the changes in average commission rates, agents in the South supposedly saw the largest reduction in average seller-paid commission, with a 74 basis point drop from 5.67% on average down to 4.93% on average. Next, the West has apparently seen a 67 basis point drop from 5.38% to 4.71%. The Midwest has seen a 63 basis point drop from 6.30% to 5.67%. And finally, the Northeast has supposedly seen a 50 basis point drop from 5.3% down to 4.8%. So according to the report, the percentage of sellers that provided compensation to a buyer's agent fell from 91% before the rule change to 77% afterward. Now, that is according to RIS Media. That's their recent contract and commission study. I've got a link in the show notes if you want to check it out. So there is another study that was published by Redfin just a few weeks ago on October 31st, and it paints a completely different picture. So according to Redfin, quote, commissions paid to real estate agents representing buyers have remained essentially unchanged since new rules on commissions went into effect on August 17th. The average buyer's agent commission for homes sold in October was 2.34%, ticking down just 1 basis point from 2.35% for homes sold in August when the new changes took effect. And that's down from an average of 2.45% a year ago. Commissions for homes listed under $500,000 have risen slightly since August, while commissions for homes listed above $500,000 have fallen slightly. Commissions may face more downward pressure next year if we see a resurgence in bidding wars. Sellers are becoming increasingly aware that commissions are negotiable and that if they have a desirable home, they may be able to get the buyer to cover some or even all of the buyer's agent's commission. Of course, as in all real estate deals, any negotiation is dependent on how much demand there is for a property, and sellers who are struggling to find a buyer may even offer more to help attract more interest, unquote. Now, several CEOs and leaders from publicly traded companies have started addressing this issue in their earning calls for the quarter. According to Inman, for example, Anywhere CEO Ryan Schneider recently commented, quote, our commission rates were down 4 to 5 basis points this quarter, unquote. According to Redfin CEO Glenn Kelman, quote, most homeowners are still willing to pay the buyer's agent, but many aren't setting that agent's fee in advance, instead planning to negotiate it alongside other offer terms. This by itself has been a major change, but to our surprise, the fee that is negotiated often seems nearly identical to what buyer's agents were earning before the settlement, unquote. And according to RE/MAX president Amy Lessinger, quote, I do not think enough time has passed to draw any large conclusions. The difference in average rates was very negligible, unquote. So based on the comments from those leaders at these publicly traded companies on their earnings calls to investors talking about how their average commission rates have been impacted by the settlement, it seems like there has been not much change and maybe a couple basis points worth of a decline, but nothing to really panic about. At our company here at Bluefield Realty Group, I track this as well. One of the KPIs that I look at every Friday is our average commission rate on closings. And while that has bounced up and down over the last couple of years, if I were to look at the impact over the last couple months since the settlement, you really can't identify an inflection point on that graph. Just anecdotally from talking to our agents, it sounds like maybe the amount being offered at the beginning is a little bit lower, but by the time the negotiations are done, the actual amount we're earning is pretty darn similar to what we were earning before the settlement. So meanwhile, the National Association of Realtors wrapped up their annual conference in Boston this week, with the executive committee voting on a handful of measures. Perhaps the most important of these is where are the funds going to come from to pay for the NAR settlement? According to Inman, quote, NAR membership was at 1.5 million members as of October 31st. The trade group reported separately on Monday. That is a 2% decline compared to the end of 2023, but higher than the 1.4 million originally forecast for 2024. For the end of the year, forecast results reflect a significant uptick in membership dues revenue because of the higher than anticipated membership levels. This will result in a modest increase to NAR's overall reserves rather than a decrease as planned in 2024. In May, the board voted to keep membership dues as is in 2025, despite a proposed $418 million antitrust settlement that, if it receives final approval on November 26th, will require NAR to make its first $197 million payment 90 days later in the first quarter of 2025. For anyone wondering where the funds to pay for the settlement will come from, votes held by the executive committee held at least partial answers. NAR's reserve fund, including operating reserves and those that were collected from members specifically for lobbying and to advertise the Realtor brand. Before the board of directors meeting, the NAR executive committee separately approved a motion that advocacy and consumer advertising campaign reserves be used to fund NAR settlement obligations, and that the board designation for these funds be suspended for the duration of the settlement period, unquote. So the good news is that membership dues will not increase next year in 2025, and NAR leadership is confident that they can make the settlement payments by diverting funds that would have otherwise been used for lobbying efforts and national advertising campaigns. So 10 years ago, back in 2014, NAR commissioned the Swanepoel T3 Group, which is now T360, to research and report on the state of the real estate industry. Now, according to the report, its purpose was to, quote, research threats, opportunities, key trends, and issues, particularly from the fields that may impact our industry, our members, the association, and the real estate consumer, unquote. And in order to accomplish this, the team at T360 flew across the country. They interviewed leaders at 70 of the biggest real estate companies and franchises, and the result was what they called the Danger Report. This is essentially an exhaustive list of the top threats to agents, brokers, NAR, the state and local associations, and the various MLSs across the country. And now, 10 years later, T360 has recently released what they're calling the Opportunity Report, which takes a look at the landscape now in 2024 and what are the biggest opportunities that real estate professionals can capitalize on moving forward. So I thought it'd be fun for us to take a quick look at both the Danger Report from 10 years ago and say, you know, what was accurate, what was inaccurate, what has come to fruition as far as what they had identified as the top dangers and threats facing the industry. And then also take a brief look at the new Opportunity Report at what they are saying are the top opportunities that we as real estate professionals should be focusing on. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and just jump into the PDF so you can find links to these in the show notes at realestatebackstage.com/episode 5. So the number one threat that they identified 10 years ago as being a danger to real estate agents specifically, quote, masses of marginal agents destroy reputation. The real estate industry is saddled with a large number of part-time, untrained, unethical, and or incompetent agents. Their knowledge gap threatens the credibility of the industry. The knowledge and competency gap from the most to the least is very large due to the low barriers to entry, low continuing education requirements, and the lure of quickly making big dollars. I would have to agree with this. I think it's probably a little bit too easy to get your real estate license in a lot of states, and the continuing education hours are much lower compared to other industries like insurance, financial advising, things like that. According to the report here, quote, becoming a cosmetologist requires an average of 372 hours, but becoming a licensed real estate agent requires an average of only 70 hours, with the lowest state requirement being 13 hours. I'm not sure what state that is, but only 13 hours of pre-licensing education, that seems way too low. Yeah, I just think the barrier to entry is probably a little bit too low. Now, I'm not a big fan of government regulation and making it hard for people to get into business and do business, but I think you have to also protect the consumer. And I think if you make it too easy for someone to be licensed to handle what is typically the largest financial transaction of someone's life, I would be in favor of states across the country making it more difficult to get a real estate license, and also increasing the continuing education requirements to make it a little bit harder to stay licensed for the agents who aren't doing transactions and can't afford the CE. Just in general, though, there needs to be more training, more education. Brokerages need to take a more proactive stance on onboarding and training their agents, teaching them how to do business, how to take good care of their clients. All right, let's take a look at what they identified as the second biggest threat facing agents. Quote, commissions spiral downward. A variety of powerful forces exert significant downward pressure on real estate commissions. The continued rise in home prices has facilitated the elevation of real estate earnings based on commissions. Those earnings have not gone unnoticed by consumers, who are responding by placing increased pressure on real estate agents to reduce their commission rates. As a result, many fear a gradual downward slide or a realignment of fees as charged in other countries in the world, unquote. So yeah, I would say this has been fairly accurate. Over the last 10 years, the average commission rates have been steadily declining. There has been downward pressure on commission rates, although they probably haven't changed as dramatically as people feared that they would 10 years ago. Earlier in the show, we talked about average commission rates and how they've been impacted. However, I do think it's important to note that while average commission rates have been coming down, the actual dollar amounts of those commission payments has been increasing, especially in recent years where the average rate of home price appreciation has outpaced inflation. So even if the average commission rate is going down, agent earnings have been increasing because of how quickly home prices have been going up. All right, let's take a look at what they identified as a couple of the top threats facing brokerages specifically. The number one thing they identified was regulation. From the report, quote, regulatory creep and large financial penalties increase compliance costs. The CFPB was established as a new bureau through the authorization of the Dodd-Frank Wall Street Reform and Consumer Financial Protection Act of 2010. It's a mouthful. It has overwhelmed each of the industries it has entered: student loans, automobile loans, credit cards, and mortgages. And given its short but impressive history, there is every indication it will have a significant impact on national, large, and or diversified real estate groups, unquote. The CFPB certainly has cracked down on RESPA violations. I wouldn't say that over the past decade, the CFPB has really made that big of an impact, was posed to that big of a danger to real estate companies. It certainly did for those that weren't following the law. But, you don't really read that often about a real estate brokerage that was penalized by the CFPB. And when they were, is probably for good reason most of the time. Typically, these companies feel like they're in compliance with RESPA. They're receiving illegal kickbacks from vendors. But I don't think that the CFPB specifically has made that big of a negative impact on brokerages over the last 10 years. All right, let me find another one of these threats to brokerages that looks interesting. Here's one. A consumer brand crashes the party. Quote, a well-established consumer brand is introduced into the marketplace and a new multi-billion-dollar residential real estate brokerage brand is created. Historically, introducing a new brand from outside the residential real estate brokerage marketplace has been difficult and considered by many as very unlikely due to the fragmented, hyper-local, and highly personal nature of the industry. With growing consolidation in the industry and the increased addition of systems and technology, the previously held limitations of building a brand no longer apply. Over the past decade, Realogy has proven that it is feasible to take certain outside brands, such as Better Homes and Gardens and Sotheby's, and successfully introduce them into residential real estate franchising. Warren Buffett has proven that a completely unknown brand in the residential real estate industry, such as Berkshire Hathaway, can be introduced and built into a new powerhouse. It would not be a stretch for home improvement giants Home Depot or Lowe's to expand into the residential real estate brokerage business, unquote. Yeah, I don't see Home Depot or Lowe's getting into the real estate business as a brokerage. Could we see Facebook, Apple, Google, one of those companies? If anyone was going to do it, it would probably be Amazon. They have successfully expanded into a whole bunch of different market categories. Pretty much everyone already has an Amazon Prime account. There's a lot of brand equity there, a lot of consumer trust. So I could see Amazon potentially attempting to make an expansion into the residential real estate brokerage business and start hiring real estate agents. If anyone was going to give it a shot, it would probably be Amazon. But hey, more power to them. If they want to do it, they're welcome to do it. There's plenty of business for everyone. That's my philosophy. All right, here's an interesting one. New business models go mainstream. The existing compensation structure gets eclipsed as new business models gain rapid traction. The relationship between brokers and agents has been redefined a number of times during the last 50 years. Each time, the redefinition of the relationship resulted in the formation of a new company or group of companies. The innovations brought to the industry by those companies caused a disruption in the industry that resulted in an increase in the number of agents jumping between companies. You've got Century 21, for example, who was the first company to really bring franchising as a business model to the residential brokerage space. They used franchising as a growth engine. A lot of people joined Century 21 back in the day. Then you had Remax, then you had Keller Williams, then you had EXP. You're always going to see some new kid on the block that agents are excited about and jumping to. I think that's healthy. I think it's important to kind of challenge the status quo and attempt to provide more value to agents. This is why there's been compression on splits and on brokerage margins over the last decade. And this is why here at Bluefield Realty Group, we offer a variety of different commission structures for agents to choose from. So we've got 3 different plans: bronze, silver, gold, different commission splits, different caps, different service offerings, different value propositions. That way we don't have like a one-size-fits-all approach, and we're always focusing on how can we provide more value to our agents. I think this one definitely has proven true over the last 10 years. There's been continued additional business models that have gained traction. A lot of new companies get into the market and have quick success. I think they hit the nail on the head with this one. All right, so now let's jump over from the danger report to the opportunity report that was recently released by T360. And this identifies what they believe are the biggest opportunities that we as real estate professionals can take advantage of in the coming years. The number one thing on their list is the decoupling of buyer and seller compensation. According to their report, quote, the National Association of Realtors lawsuit settlement makes buyers separately responsible for compensating the real estate agent that helps them buy a house. Buyer agent compensation can no longer be paid through a unilateral offer through the MLS. For the context, they put previously real estate commissions for both the listing agent and the buyer's agent were bundled into a single fee in the listing agreement. When a property was posted on the MLS, a portion of that fee was allocated to the buyer's agent, commonly splitting the total commission 50-50. However, this practice has now ended, and MLS listings can no longer reference the buyer's agent commission. Here's what they identify as the opportunity. Quote, the opportunity with the decoupling of fees is the creation of a new market, which is the market for buyer agent services. Now is the time for brokers and their agents to establish a value proposition for buyer agent services in their company. For many buyers agents, the industry practice of simply accepting whatever was offered in the MLS led to a decrease in income for the same work. For skilled buyers agents who offer a great value to their clients, including the negotiation skills that save their clients money, it is quite possible that this change leads to them effectively giving themselves a raise. For the consumer, the market-based approach for the buyer fees can lead to a variety of options that give them both choice and the opportunity for savings. All right, here's one that I really like. Elevate agents to a new perspective on their role. Quote, the industry has a unique second chance to redefine the role and value of real estate agents, positioning them as professional advisors rather than licensees or salespersons. In context, they put real estate agents handle approximately 180 tasks throughout a home buying or selling transaction. These include managing listings, coordinating marketing efforts, navigating communications with potential buyers, addressing challenges, gathering necessary approvals, negotiating offers, handling document management, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. The complexity underscores the importance of professional assistance. While some individuals may complete such transactions independently, most home buyers and sellers do not fully grasp the complexities and risks involved. That's definitely true. So the opportunity, engaging a licensed real estate professional when buying or selling a home offers clear advantages, including expertise in local markets, negotiation skills, knowledge of financial and legal challenges. Agents provide critical pricing guidance based on current market data, ensuring homes are competitively priced for sellers and that buyers understand market value. Their negotiation expertise helps secure favorable terms for clients while reducing compliance risks and streamlining the process. The future of agents will be defined by their ability to provide consultative value. As such, they must be as informed as the data available to consumers and focus on making transactions more efficient. Brokers and agents need to adopt a proactive approach in clearly communicating the value that real estate professionals bring. By explaining the comprehensive services they offer and the various steps involved in a transaction, consumers will be better equipped to make well-informed, confident decisions. Additionally, helping consumers understand the range of brokerage models, whether a la carte, flat fee, concierge, or full service, ensures that they select the option that best meets their unique needs and expectations. As licensed real estate agents, we provide professional services, and we need to do a better job of elevating the professionalism within our industry so that the consumers view us the same way that they would view a financial advisor or an attorney. I think a lot of times realtors are just way too casual in the way that they dress, the way that they talk, the way they interact with their clients. Again, there's a lot of part-time, low-producing agents in the industry, but I think you really need to treat this like a business, and you need to try to make a good impression on your clients. That is definitely an opportunity in our industry. All right, here's another good one. Digitize the real estate transaction with AI. Quote, artificial intelligence is among the most transformative technologies ever introduced to residential real estate, potentially serving as the catalyst to fully digitize the real estate transaction process, unquote. So I don't think that you're ever going to completely remove real estate agents from the equation. I think a real estate purchase or sale is typically the largest financial transaction someone makes. They typically only do it once every 7 to 10 years. So I don't think people are going to want to just click a button the way they order food on DoorDash to buy or sell a house. Real estate agents are always going to have a place, but the agents who leverage technology, who leverage AI, are the ones who are going to be the most successful because they use it as a competitive advantage to outperform other agents. There are plenty of things that you could be doing to utilize AI. For example, there are some great digital virtual staging companies out there that you can upload a photo and it uses AI to automatically place furniture in the room. I've used that for listings before. It's a really cool tool. ChatGPT, of course, is highly popular. There's all kinds of cool things you can do with that. You don't want to just plug something into ChatGPT and then copy and paste whatever it spits out and use that as your final draft. Use ChatGPT as a way to help you organize your thoughts, structure things in a way that makes sense. So for example, you could type in a prompt, help me write a listing description for a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom property in this city with these features and these amenities. And it will spit out something that's maybe more eloquent, more organized than what you'd be able to do on your own. And then you can tweak it and make some adjustments, make it sound like you, and just kind of go from there. You can also use ChatGPT to help you write emails, maybe to a difficult client or a difficult situation. If you're having a hard time just kind of processing your thoughts, you can put in bullet points and it'll, package that into a well-crafted paragraph for you. Again, ChatGPT should be almost like a writing assistant, help you with a first draft, and then you make adjustments from there. All right, y'all, that's a wrap for today. Just a reminder, you can find the show notes with links to all of the articles we discussed at realestatebackstage.com/episode 5. I'll see you here next week with another behind the scenes look at the real estate industry here on Real Estate Backstage.